Today I'm gonna do something that I usually don't. This is not a genuine Gibson Explorer Custom, it is a Chibson, meaning it's a Chinese copy. It belongs to a friend of mine who has modified it, and I had the chance of playing it before all of the mods. My friend gave his guitar to a professional guitar tech who did all of the fretwork from scratch, gave it a new nut and installed the EMG James Hetfield Set. What I'm gonna do now is show you two intros. First I'm gonna play the guitar as is from the box. The original fretwork, the original electronics, no setup. I was tripping all over it, it was pretty much unplayable. The second video is after the work of the professional guitar tech with the EMG James Hetfield Set installed. In this video I'm gonna give you my take on should you be buying copy guitars and upgrading them like this. Spoiler alert, it's not. Oh yeah, and to spice things up, I'm gonna A/B test the Chibson with what's in my opinion the best sounding ESP with the James Hetfield set of pickups. Let's go. All the work was done by Mojo Gear, a professional guitar tech that a lot of my friends use. Initially, the refret job was not planned, but the original fretwork was just terrible. In a video, Mojo demonstrated that you can easily pull off some of the frets by using your fingernail. So just a fret leveling job was out of the question. Mojo also stated that the original nut was just terrible, the cheapest plastic possible, the strings were digging into it even before extensive playing. So he made a new bone nut from scratch, he gave it new frets and installed the EMG James Hetfield Set in it. Now here's a disclaimer for you, I do not support buying fake guitars, I do not support buying fake anything. Apart from a pair of Ray-Bans that I bought when I was young and I didn't know they were copies, I've never bought any copy in my life. This guitar belongs to a good friend of mine, it is his decision to buy it and try and upgrade it. I do not recommend that. I do not support it for a couple of reasons. The first one, I'm a huge Gibson and Epiphone fan. and I do not support buying copies and encouraging people to buy copies of a brand that I want to support for a long time and I want to see them profit. Gibson has a lot of lawsuits, and that's for a reason. They are protecting their property. That's how you survive in this business, and in any business if somebody is copying your product. The second reason, which will probably make more sense to you guys, is that copies are inconsistent in quality. In this particular case, the truss rod works, the guitar is playable, it becomes pretty nice playing after the upgrades, but you cannot be absolutely sure that this is gonna work every time. These Chinese copies are made from the cheapest wood possible, they're made in a hurry, they're made by a workforce that has to do them for the cheapest price possible. Basically, you're not sure what you're gonna get when you order one of these cheap copies. The third reason is the guitar tech. Not every guitar tech is willing to do such a good job for a low price. The guitar costs roughly 400 euro. The professional guitar tech work is cheap for what he did, for 200 euro. And I think the headset is around 250 euro. I know this makes it appealing. Buying an actual Gibson Custom Explorer is like 10 times more expensive, but trust me, it's worth it in the long run. So I can't stop you from buying cheap copies, but I strongly suggest you don't, especially if you don't have a good guitar tech. You've gone and done it anyway, you rascal. So you got yourself a cheap Gibson copy, you gave it to a professional guitar tech, you slapped a set of EMG James Hetfield hot and fancy pickups in there. You've beaten the system, right? You don't need a good guitar with fancy wood and all. Let's put it to the test. In my opinion, this is the best sounding ESP with the EMG James Hetfield set that I've ever tried. It is my personal 2014 ESP James Hetfield Iron Cross. Here you go, should be the same electronics, the EMG James Hetfield Set, one of the early iterations. I'm gonna link videos of me comparing this guitar to the ESP Trucksters, the Snakebites, the Vulture, among other guitars, and this one, to me, sounded the best, so I decided to keep it in my personal collection. And now I'm gonna A/B test it against the upgraded Chibson. What can I say? I was kind of surprised. I was expecting the ESP to walk over it, but the Chibson held its own. The headset was a big surprise for me because it sounded heavier than the set in my ESP, and I think these new ones, the 2020-23, they have more gain than the 2014. I'm gonna explain playability a bit later on. Now let's see what it's made of. God knows how many pieces of wood that I'm not sure what exactly it is. My guess is as good as yours. Long neck tenon that Mojo exposed by sanding it down. 22 replaced frets. The fingerboard looks like some sort of a rosewood. I'm not entirely sure that it's rosewood, it's cheaper grade. The Explorer shape of the headstock with the Gibson logo, which is a copyright infringement. Cheap tuners that are installed crookedly. A replacement bone nut specially made by Mojo Gear, the original one was terrible. A set of replacement EMG James Hetfield pickups. I have the original pickups, I'm gonna show them to you later on. To pneumatic bridge and a tailpiece, then the controls are neck volume, bridge volume, tone. A closer look under the pickups. First we see a long neck tenon, and I mean long. This is typical for an Explorer, check it out. It goes all the way from the heel to in here, and the professional guitar tech Mojo Gear sanded down the paint so we can see the wood of the neck. I'm not sure why he did that. I requested for him to sound these parts down because the pickups, the bolts for the height adjustment were pushing down on them and the pickups were slanting a bit, but he did that and it doesn't work the way I intended. Probably a bit of a misunderstanding between me and my friend the owner, but anyway, originally both pickup cavities had the paint in there, and these are the quick connect plugs for the EMG James Hetfield Set. The routing for the neck cable goes between both cavities. Under the pickguard we have the routing for the three-way switch. The Chinese workers did a decent job of the routing. What's unusual is that they've used a regular three-way switch that is used on Les Paul type of guitars. Usually on Explorers with front routing you should use the L-shaped switch, but it's more expensive and I understand why the Chinese workers routed deeper to accommodate for the cheaper three-way switch. Here's the pickup situation. The original pickups are unknown, they just come marked like this, N for neck, looks like this, and the other one should be marked B for bridge. I really have no idea what these are. What I do know is that they are dull sounding and low output. They absolutely suck for heavy tones. I'm gonna measure them in a minute. My friend chose a good substitution for them, the original EMG James Hetfield Set. This is a brand new one made in the 3rd of March 2023. That's the neck position. Next up is the bridge. They should be made close to each other. That's the golden set. Yup, 3 days later, the 6th of March 2023. Here's the box for the headset. One spare pot, you only need 3 on the Explorer, and these are the long shaft. It is a thick guitar, you usually use those on Les Pauls. Here's the cover of the box. Fun fact is that the box art is James holding the Truckster that doesn't even have the EMG James Hetfield Set in it. It has the regular 8160, I think. Gold, and here's the serial number. The headset is pretty neat and it comes with the schematics. In this particular case we have 3 pots, so people usually use that schematic. I'm not sure you're supposed to use that exact schematic because this is the 3rd Explorer that has signal leaks when all of the pots are all the way down. The dimensions and the spacing are also listed in here. I've just reinstalled the pickguard and I want to point out that each and every one of these screws is crooked. Looks terrible in person and these are too big, the heads are too big for this pickguard. Some more cost cutting with the screws for the pickup rings. They're all the same length and usually you don't need long screws for the neck pickup because it's slanted like this, and you don't need a long screw to hold it in place. For the back, yes, I understand. One size bought in bulk is cheaper. Earlier I mentioned that the routing for the legs of the adjustment screws is not deep enough, and this is what I meant by it. You see how the neck pickup is always slanted like this because there's not enough space for the adjustment screws. Lifting it up a bit doesn't work as well and it's always slanted like that, which is a bit annoying. A similar situation with the bridge pickup, but I somehow managed to make it sit straight like this. The controls are 3-way switch, neck volume, bridge volume, master tone. Now let's measure the pickups. And just as I suspected, similar situation like with the Antonio guitars, the schematic is wrong for this setup and the pickups don't measure correctly. And as you can see, the volume does nothing when the bridge is selected. Same goes if you select the neck pickup. Let's do that. It's selected, fiddle with the volume, it reacts but not in the way as I wanted, so that's wiring issue. What happens if I select the middle position, both pickups? 1156. But you see, I don't think that's the correct schematic for Explorers with 3 pots. Weirdly, everything sounds correct when you're playing the guitar and all of the pots are in the maximum position, but you start to see the issue when you lower the volume. So everything works as it should with the controls, so no wiring issue there. I don't know what happened with the readings, but there you go, you have... Oh. No. We have some leaks here. We're on the bridge pickup. You're not supposed to hear it. Yeah. When you get the tone down, everything is muted. But if you get the neck and the tone, you see, the bridge is switched. You shouldn't have any leaks like that. That's the bridge. That's the neck. Again, some leaks here. Yeah, so it sounds okay. The bridge sounds okay, the neck sounds okay, but it shouldn't have these leaks when you're selecting the... Yeah, now the bridge is selected, you're on the bridge position here. You shouldn't hear anything regardless if the neck volume or the tone are up. It's okay, I guess. The stock neck pickups measures at 828k ohms. Now let's see what the bridge will show. 1574. Even though that's hot, it doesn't sound high gain at all. But that depends on the coil, the magnets used. That's a wall quality pickup right here. These are the original pots with the capacitors. They come cheaper by the dozen, and I've seen them on cheap guitars. They are actually sold by the dozen. Interestingly, these are long shaft even though they're cheap. The capacitors are probably cheaper by the dozen as well. What does it say? 2A473. We got one more for the other volume. Same capacitor, long shaft, and the third one is probably for the tone. They're 500k. Notice the stock output jack. First time I'm seeing a plastic base on one of these. This must be worth under $1. Well, it's normal for a cheap copy to have something like this. I imagine this output jack will fail within a month. The stock bridge and tailpiece. At first when I got the guitar out of the box, these didn't want to come out. Now it seems intonated by Mojo Gear and it comes out easily, so he did some job on it. To be fair, this one has some substance to it, feels better than most copies. 63 grams is decent. It is actually on the heavy side. Usually the Gibson, the Schallers Gotos, they weigh around 50 grams. This one is substantial and feels okay. I've never seen poles or struts like these. They are not thumb wheel adjustable. You can only adjust them by a screwdriver. So if you want to replace your hardware, I'm not sure how this is gonna work. You're not gonna replace the poles. You see some imperfections in the paint. Mojo managed to unstuck the struts of the tailpiece as well. Let's discuss the body and finish. You're probably noticing the rough patch on the top. As I previously mentioned, that's not mahogany, probably cheap grade wood that has similar properties, but you can see the result of using it. God knows how many pieces are in here, probably a sandwich body too. For that price, it is to be expected. What about the binding? Well, it's rough. You see here the edge, they had to use a separate piece for it. It's not easy to do proper binding. Multiply in this case, but if you look at the guitar up close, you start to see how bad it is made. From a couple of feet away though, it's enough to fool a lot of people. What about the neck? Well, I'm suspecting one piece judging by the neck joint, but again, cheap material. Side dot inlays, binding on the neck, no fret nips, the fretwork was bad. The fingerboard wood is okay, I guess. It has some imperfections, but it's tolerable. The problem with most of these Chinese copies is the fretwork, and in general Epiphone has problems with their fretwork as well. In his video, Mojo showed that the original fretwork was so bad that the frets were lifting off the fingerboard with the help of just your fingernail. Combine that with the bad original pickups and the horrible nut. This one is the replacement bowl. Now the guitar is playable and enjoyable to play. But keep in mind that not everybody is gonna be that lucky. The guitar was decent to begin with, and then Mojo did a wonderful job. If you don't have a proper guitar tech on your hands, a cheaper one, affordable one, you're not gonna be able to achieve the same results. The block inlays are not the proper size and they're not made of mother of pearl, but I'd say they're okay. How can you tell that you have a copy on your hands? Well, the first thing, Gibson Les Paul, Explorer, HG custom shop instruments usually have the darker fingerboard made out of ebony and mother of pearl inlays who react to the light very vividly. Here we have lighter in color fingerboard like rosewood, and the inlays are made out of pearloid plastic. Check out how different they are to the mother of pearl ones. Notice the smaller in size block inlays on the Chinese copy as well. So if you don't have the dark fingerboard and no mother of pearl inlays, you got yourself a copy. Also notice the difference between the binding of the original custom shop instrument and the binding of the copy. Much wider and not so well done. Another big difference is that the custom shop instruments and Gibsons in general have the nitrocellulose finish, which is a softer to the feel lacquer that turns yellow over time. This guitar, the Silver Burst, is gonna turn green like the Adam Jones that is replicating this effect. Nitro finish is done over a couple of days and it's expensive to do. The copies usually have the poly finish, the polyurethane. I haven't yet seen a cheap Chinese copy with a nitrocellulose finish, so that's another clue. The headstock is another tell that this is a Chinese copy. First of all, check out how crooked the cavity for the truss rod is. Also, the cheap tuners had been installed crooked. Check out the spacing between the A and the D. Even if you don't notice the spacing, even if they're done right, they feel cheap. Not to mention that the Gibson logo is not made out of mother of pearl and it's going out of the boundaries of the headstock for the N. In a minute I'm gonna put on the cover for the truss rod cavity and you'll notice how it's pushing against the tuner. Here's another look at that truss rod cavity. It's a rough routing job, but the good news is that the truss rod is actually working. I've managed to adjust the height of the strings. The tuners are awful. Here's the truss rod cover imitating the Gibson bell. Notice how it's pushing against the A tuner. Cheap plastic, 2-ply, inconsistent at some spots, and already one of the screws is not catching on this hole near the nut. Speaking of, the new nut is nearly 43mm wide or 1.68 inch. At the 12th fret 53mm or 2.08 inches. Thickness at the 1st fret 20.7mm or 0.81 inch. Thickness at the 12th fret 23.5mm or 0.92. A bit thinner than the Les Paul Custom. The body thickness is 42.2mm or 1.66 inch. Pickup ring spacing 49.5mm or 1.94 inch, much narrower than the 60mm on the Les Paul. Fingerboard radius seems okay at 12 inches and the scale length is 24.75. The neck profile is okay as well, nicely rounded off C-shape, not that it matters because probably these will vary from guitar to guitar. Nothing special for the back of the guitar, but so is the original, no binding back here. I see a seam line up here and I see a huge dink, that's factory. And also the lid for the electronics is so badly cut that I've almost didn't want to put it back on initially, it was so hard to do. The headset comes with its own output jack, so off with the cheap original. The plate is for a Les Paul type of guitar though, so it's not flush to the body. Original strap button here and one over here. Back of the neck is gloss and finished in black, so we cannot see much. No volute here, no serial number for these guitars, and the crooked tuners again. Here's what the electronics compartment used to look like before the headset. I got annoyed with this cover and I didn't want to put it back on. This is what the electronics compartment looks like with the EMG James Hetfield Set electronics in it. Here's the spot for the 9V battery. I've pulled it out so I can show the electronics to you guys. The motherboard fits on the cover using this dual lock fastener, and the 9V battery barely fits, but obviously it does. Here's what it looks like with the battery in place. Even though Mojo did a great job, I had to lower the strings a little bit further, so I've tightened the truss rod, which was very loose. Obviously the fretwork is amazing, the nut is also great. This goes to show exactly how important proper fretwork, nut and proper pickups are, and if you swap the hardware and the tuners, this is gonna become an even better guitar. Everything matters on a guitar, guys, the wood, the hardware, the electronics. And even though you might think that tone wood doesn't matter, keep in mind that these are active EMG pickups and I'm trying them through a metal amp. If you A/B this guitar with a custom shop instrument with the same pickups through a mid-gain setup, it will get demolished. here's what I think about the Chibson. This particular one turned out to be good. Mojo did a wonderful job with the fretwork, with the nut. The EMG James Hetfield Set sounds amazing in here. My friend got exactly what he wanted. The Gibson Explorer looks for cheap with the EMG headset for playing heavy music. Would I ever do it? No, I don't think I will, because I don't like the looks of this guitar in person. It looks cheap, yeah, if you know the insides of it, you know how cheap it's made, and it's pretty much luck that it turned out this good. I do not support buying copies, and I never will. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, George, not everybody has the money for a custom shop Gibson Explorer, but hear me out. What I would do instead, and I have a video of doing this, is buy the Epiphone Explorer, the 58. Buy the Epiphone, give it to Mojo for fret leveling and a new nut, not a new fret job. And put a set of active pickups in there, what we actually did in the video that I'm gonna link. I don't like copies, I never will, it's too much of a gamble, but hey, whatever floats your boat.